Off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan, rising from the restless grey sea, lies a cold slab of concrete, not an island, but a ghost ship made of steel and stone, drifting forever in silence. The Japanese call it Gunkanjima, Battleship Island, named after its eerie silhouette resembling a sunken war vessel. But to the rest of the world, it's known simply as the concrete ghost town. This isn't fiction. Hashima Island was once the most densely populated place on Earth, a vertical city, crammed into just 16 acres of rock. It wasn't built out of vision or beauty, but out of necessity coal. At the end of the 19th century, Mitsubishi discovered rich coal deposits beneath the island and swiftly turned Hashima into an industrial stronghold. Concrete towers rose straight from the sea, surrounded by sea walls like a fortress. To power Japan's industrial ambitions, they brought in thousands of workers and their families. To house them, they built apartments, hospitals, schools, stores, even a movie theater, all floating in the middle of the ocean. By the 1950s, over 5,200 people were crammed onto that tiny speck of rock. Children played on rooftops because there was no space below. Hundreds of staircases became public streets. No trees, no grass, no silence. Just cement, steel, coal, and sweat. And then it died. In 1974, the coal dried up. Mitsubishi shut it all down. Residents were told to leave, and they did in just days, and taking only what they could carry. They left behind everything else: books, tables, beds, wedding photos, clocks still ticking. Hashima became a frozen photograph in time, a place where life vanished and memory began to rot in silence. But Hashima isn't just a dead city. It's a scar. During World War II, hundreds of Korean and Chinese forced laborers were brought here, shoved into underground mines, starved of light, working to death beneath the sea. No one knows how many bodies remain buried beneath the ruins. But their presence lingers, a quiet rage embedded in the cracked concrete. Today the island is partially open to limited tourism. Wind howls through broken windows. Staircases lead nowhere. There is no life, no light, no color. Only shattered walls and the heavy breath of forgotten souls. From above, Hashima looks like a sunken warship, fossilized in the ocean, a grey rectangle surrounded by endless blue. No plants, no people, no future. Only the past decaying layer by layer. Whisper by whisper, the last breath of an era when man tried to conquer the sea and his own history. Tucked away in the eastern hills of Pennsylvania, Centralia looks like any small American town until you look at the ground. It's cracked, it's breathing smoke, and it's constantly getting hotter. Beneath the surface, a silent fire has been burning since 1962, and it may keep burning for another 250 years. There's no raging inferno, no towering flames, just an underground monster, slithering through the abandoned coal tunnels like veins slowly devouring the town from below. It all started with a small mistake, a trash dump ignited too close to an exposed coal seam. A spark caught, and then no one could stop it. Centralia didn't die overnight. It was slowly roasted alive. Cracks began to split the roads. Toxic gases vented from the earth, turning the ground into a death trap. One young boy was nearly swallowed whole by a sinkhole that suddenly opened behind his house. Residents noticed their basements were warming up not from heaters, but because the fire was approaching. By the 1980s, the government stepped in. The town was condemned. Most residents accepted buyouts and left. Homes were torn down. Centralia began to vanish from the map. A handful of people stayed behind, not out of faith, but because they simply couldn't let go of the dying land. Today, Centralia is a ghost town not because it's empty, but because something beneath it is still alive. You can still walk its abandoned streets where graffiti blankets, cracked asphalt, and ruptures crawl like spiderwebs. Trees stand dead and scorched their roots, cooking in the invisible heat. From above, the town looks like a torn map. Faint streets that lead nowhere, sidewalks that end in wild grass. But thermal imaging tells a darker story. Glowing patches of intense heat scattered across the ground like infected wounds. This isn't a house fire. It's a slow-motion detonation of an entire civilization. Centralia wasn't erased by war or natural disaster. It was swallowed by fire, a fire born of human hands, yet forever beyond human control. What was once a bustling town is now nothing more than a smoldering ruin, smoky-haunted and unforgettable. A place not erased from memory, but one no one dares to remember. Kolmanskop, the ghost town sinking into Namibia's sea of sand. Deep within Namibia's vast Namib Desert, where the wind burns and the dunes never stop shifting, lies a place that shouldn't exist. It shouldn't shine. It shouldn't thrive. It shouldn't be alive. And that is exactly why it didn't last. This is Kolmanskop, a once booming German diamond mining town, now nothing more than a skeleton of ruins slowly swallowed by sand and silence. In the early 1900s, a railway worker stumbled upon diamonds glinting on the ground, not buried, not hidden, just lying there in the dust. Overnight, a town sprang up in the middle of nowhere. Rich, extravagant, proud. The Germans didn't just build homes. They built European-style mansions, a modern hospital with Africa's first X-ray machine. There was a school, a bowling alley, a theater, even an ice factory in the middle of the desert. Champagne flowed, classical music filled the air, and fortunes were pulled straight from the soil. They lived like kings on borrowed time. But the desert never forgets, and nature never forgives. As the diamonds ran dry and richer, mines were found elsewhere. Kolmanskop was quietly abandoned. By the 1950s, the last glasses were emptied, the music faded, and the footsteps stopped. No farewell, just wind. And then the sand moved in. Today, no one lives in Kolmanskop. The only thing that moves is the wind, carrying sand into bedrooms, across staircases, through shattered windows. Furniture lies broken. Walls crack. These once grand villas are now elegant tombs of dust, hauntingly beautiful in their decay. From above, Kolmanskop looks like a faded blueprint of memory. Faint rectangles trace foundations. Rooflines sag, barely holding back the weight of time. A town that once thrived now sinks slowly into a golden ocean, grain by grain. No cars, no trees, no water towers. Only strange geometric scars, the final signature of a civilization overtaken by the very land it once conquered. San-Zhi, Taiwan's forgotten UFO village. Along a windswept coastal highway just outside New Taipei City, Taiwan once stood what looked like a landing site for aliens. Clusters of bright round pods lined the shore, facing the sea like beacons from another world. This was San-Zhi Pod City, a futuristic dream resort that never made it past the blueprint of imagination. Construction began in the late 1970s with ambitions to create a luxury seaside retreat for the wealthy. The design was straight out of science fiction, modular UFO-like homes, prefabricated and stacked in smooth interlocking curves. From above, it resembled a space colony by the sea. But something felt wrong from the start. Almost as soon as construction began, disaster followed. Fatal accidents plagued the site. Workers fell, equipment failed. Whispers of a curse began to spread. Superstitious locals believed the land had once been a Dutch colonial cemetery, and that the spirits of the dead were resisting the project. Funding stalled. Investors pulled out. By the early 1980s, the dream was abandoned. The colorful pods were left standing exposed to sunsalt and storm like derelict spacecraft, waiting for a future that never arrived. And then time took over. Windows shattered. Hinges rusted. Plants pushed through the cracks in the concrete. Kitchen tiles were left half installed. Staircases led to nowhere. The interiors stood hollow, coated in dust, filled only with silence, broken only by the howl of ocean wind passing through broken door frames. In 2008, the local government announced plans to demolish the site. By 2010, most of the original pods were gone, but their memory lived on, captured in haunting viral photos that showcased a surreal blend of retrofuturism and quiet failure. From the air, San-Zhi once looked like a forgotten alien toy village. Bright domes arranged in rows gazing upward like classy alien eyes. In older photographs, you can trace winding roads that led nowhere gaps, where pods were never installed and the weather scars were paint peeled and rooftops collapsed. San-Zhi wasn't destroyed by war or swallowed by nature. It was simply abandoned. A science fiction ghost town built for a future that never came. Beichuan, the earthquake-buried city of China, nestled deep within the rugged mountains of Sichuan province. China, where dense forests cloak steep hillsides and mist rolls across the cliffs, lies a place that was once a city. Now it is nothing more than a raw scar carved into the mountainside. This is Beichuan. On May 12, 2008, a devastating 7.9 magnitude earthquake struck the region. Within seconds, everything collapsed. Over 80,000 people perished across the province, and Beichuan was at the very heart of the catastrophe. High-rise buildings toppled like dominoes. Entire hillsides crumbled, triggering massive landslides that buried schools, homes, and roads, and the people inside under thousands of tons of rubble. A nearby dam burst, flooding low-lying areas with a torrent of mud and debris. In minutes, Beichuan ceased to be a city and became an open grave. The Chinese government made a heartbreaking decision. Beichuan would not be rebuilt. A new city rose nearby, but the original Beichuan was left untouched, preserved, not erased as a haunting monument to what was lost. A time capsule frozen in disaster. Today, if you visit, you'll see crumbling buildings lying exactly where they fell, twisted rebar tangled like shattered bones, children's backpacks strewn among broken tiles, cars half submerged in the cracked asphalt. One day it was full of life, the next full of silence. The people didn't flee because of war. They didn't leave due to poverty. They left because the ground itself opened beneath them. From above, Beichuan looks like a city collapsing into itself, streets still traceable, but structures shattered beyond recognition. The new city beside it is orderly, bright, and alive. But old Beichuan remains a concrete ghost clinging to the edge of memory. On thermal satellite scans, Beichuan shows up as a glowing red scar across the mountains. Vivid, unmistakable, and impossible to forget.